everybody, welcome to another one of my video tutorials. Today I'm going to be talking about applying Armour texture to your models, and I'm going to talk about the materials, the tools and the process that I use doing that. So this is going to be the complete how-to guide and will hopefully help you achieve the same results. So let's take a quick look at what you're going to need to do this. So first you want to grab yourself a small mixing dish like this one here, and then you're going to need a tube of basic type Tamiya putty. This is the filler type putty that we use for filling holes and gaps in our models, so most of us have some of this. Next you're going to need a slow drying styrene cement, and this one's from VMS even though it's in a different bottle, and you're going to need slow drying because this is the only thing that's going to be keeping the putty as a liquid. So if you use ordinary quick drying cement, it's going to dry out too quickly. And lastly you're going to want some brushes, and I tend to buy these major brushes. They come in packs of 10 and they're very cheap, less than £5 for a pack of 10, and I use these size 0 ones for things like applying decals or applying masking solution, anything really that you wouldn't want to use your decent brushes on, and they are actually half decent, although I never use them for painting, but yeah, you could use them for painting. These size zeros, the fibres on them are a bit too soft, so what I tend to do is stick with for doing this, I'll stick with these larger brushes, the number 8s, and you find the fibres on these, they're much more springy, they'll leave more of an impression, and of course we don't want a pointy tip to it like this brush here. So I take the brush and I get a pair of scissors on it, and I'll just snip off the tip and try to round it out a little bit more, and yeah, I'll do it pretty roughly as you can see here, but basically you just want something that's a bit springy and will leave an impression on the model when you tap it into the model surface. And hopefully that's what's going to leave your Armour texture. And when we get on to the cast textures, I tend to use something even shorter, and this has a lot of spring to it, so you can really jab it into the model. Sometimes I use the number 4s if I need to get into a tight area, because the fibres on those are also quite springy, but when you get down to the smaller sizes they really soften up the fibres on there, and that they would be absolutely useless for this. So let's mix some of this putty up with the cement, and I'll show you how to get what I think is probably the perfect consistency for carrying out this task. So I'm just going to use a small drop here, because what I'm actually doing here is I'm going back over the model a few bits to miss, the gun mantlet, the piece of armour on the turret, and the few additional plates of armour that were on the front of the vehicle, and I neglected to actually texture those. So what I'm actually doing here, mixing up here, is just enough to cover those areas. Just add a small drop of the quick drying cement into the dish as well, and then you can start mixing it up. And I'll do a bit of an edit here, and I'll just cut to the end of the mix so you can see the consistency of it, and then we'll get on to actually applying it. And you can see we have this rather thick paint-like consistency, and this is now ready to use. So when applying, I tend to roll it on a bit like a paint roller, and I'll work a few different sections, and I'll get a few different sections covered, and then I'll move back to the first section and I'll start stippling. That's usually given the putty just enough time to start going off, and it'll tend to hold the stippling pattern a little bit better. It's a little bit of I have to say, a little bit of an art, but it's something that takes a little bit of practice. You get to know the feel of the the putty, and when it's just at the right point, where if you go over with the stippling, it's going to hold the pattern, because if it's too wet, what tends to happen is it will all flatten out, and you'll look back 5 minutes later and the whole thing will be flat again, and it'll be, you know, and at that point it's dried off too much to actually start stippling it. So you then have to apply a second coat and just wait for that right time where it's at the right point to hold the stipple pattern in there. And you'll see me doing that here. I've already gone up to the top of the picture. I've already covered that, put some on the middle section. And I'm just testing with the brush at what sort of level it's at. Is it flattening out? Then I'm going back up to the top where I originally put it down, and that's where I apply the pattern. That's just about perfect. And I go into the Armour plate, and that's just about reached the perfect consistency. And for me, that's just about prominent enough to be noticeable, you know, on a model of this size when it's when it's all finished. So the only difference with cast texture is you'll tend to work the sections a lot more aggressively and for a lot longer, trying to achieve that rough cast texture finish. And basically you're just going back over it, and then if you look back and it's starting to flatten out, you'll stipple it some more until it's holding that rough texture. And you'll see as it starts to dry off, it starts to hold that rough texture a lot better. So I think I just about covered everything here. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to show a little bit of what I did today, or you know, finishing off those pieces that I neglected to do earlier on the turret. And I'll just run a bit of music until we get to the end, and I'll sign off. So if you want to hang around, be my guest, and I'll be back to sign off once I'm done. Okay guys, so I hope this was useful to some of you who wanted to try out this technique who haven't done before. I hope I've covered pretty much everything, so thanks for watching everybody, and I'll be back with another tutorial very soon.